Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I'm so excited that you are here. My name is Renee Wilson, and I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas. And this is my jam. I love talking about bridging communication gap between adults and teenagers. So I realize some of you that may be joining us tonight, you might be a parent. Some of you joining might be educator. You might be a counselor. You may be an auntie, an uncle, a godmama, whatever the role is that you have in the life of teenagers. I'm so glad that you came by tonight. Now, this time will be a time for you to interact. So throughout the night, I'll ask you to drop stuff in the chat. I will ask you to maybe raise your hand, drop me an emoji if you can resonate with what it is that I am sharing about tonight. Now, before we get started, I just want to lay a little foundation for you. Now, I came to develop Listen Here because of my own relationship with my mother as a teenager and my relationship with some young people in my life that I affectionately call my littles. Now, my littles are my niece, my nephews, my godchildren, and y'all, I love them like they're my own children. And I'm so grateful for them because they can come hang out with Nene and stay several days, but they get to go back home. And I have had the opportunity to really apply these principles of Listen Here as I am engaging in relationship with them. Now, I would love to hear from y'all where you're joining us from. So if you'll just drop in the chat, tell us where you logged on from. If you're from the DW area, if you're outside of the state of Texas, I would love to know that. Wherever you're here from, just drop it in the chat because I'm always curious like where people are all over the world. Now, I'm in Central Time Zone, so it's 7 o'clock and it is very dark outside because the time is going to change in a few days. Okay, Austin, welcome from Austin. I'm also gonna be checking. So we're on Zoom. We're also streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. So I'm gonna bounce back and forth to make sure I can capture everybody as much as I can. Now I'll get distracted, so I can't do too much. Okay, come on, South Carolina and Baltimore. Hey, welcome. We love it. We love to have y'all here. Now we're gonna start tonight with a little bit of a survey. So you can just raise your hand or you can drop in the chat me when I ask these questions. Okay, so anybody in the room happen to speak any Spanish? Just drop a me or raise your hand if you speak any Spanish. Just curious. I know Spanish speakers. Okay. Oh, okay. Dr. Christy, you speak a little Spanish. Yes, I love it. Okay. Now, anybody in the room happen to speak any French? Like throw your hand up, drop me a me, or you can say no if you don't. Now, although my hand is up, I am not actually raising my hand. My name is French, but I do not speak a lick of French. Okay. Now, here's what I want you to imagine. Imagine that you're attempting to have a conversation with someone and y'all are speaking two different languages. So imagine you're speaking English to somebody and they're speaking French back to you. And you're like, I have no idea what it is that you're saying or what you're talking about. Well, y'all, that was me. When I was a teenager, in my relationship with my mom, I felt like we were constantly missing each other in communication. It was like I was speaking Spanish and she was speaking French. And we stayed just kind of like this, just missing each other in our communication all the time. And I remember, y'all, in particular, this one time when I was in high school, I told my mama that I was moving out. I was sick of it. And I was like, I got to go because you're not letting me live my best life. Now, we weren't saying my best life back then, but if I knew that then, I would have said that. But my relationship with my mom, it was so strained and so tense. And I was like, I got to get out of here. Now, before I give y'all all that, what happened that led to that point, I want to roll it back a little bit because my mom was a single mom. So I was born in Chicago, Illinois, and we moved to San Antonio, Texas, all the way from Illinois, all the way down to San Antonio, Texas, when I was about 9 years old. I was midway through third grade. And I remember I did not want to move to Texas because I was like, it's tumbleweeds, they ride horses. Like, why are we moving to Texas? This does not sound like a good idea. But we moved to Texas. And y'all, it was fine overall. But my mom, because she was a single parent, I was a latchkey kid. So that meant after school, I let myself in the house. And my mom left me with very, very strict instructions. Okay. The first instruction was do not turn on that TV before you do your homework. Don't do it. Just come in here and do your homework. My other instruction was do not open that door for anybody that shows up. I don't care who it is. If it's your auntie, your uncle, it doesn't matter. Do not open that door for anybody. And the third one, y'all, was do not go to bed and leave them dishes in the sink. And do y'all know, I left them dishes in the sink one night, and this lady woke me up out of my good sleep and was like, hello, ma'am, it's dishes in the sink. She was not playing about leaving them dishes in the sink. But back then, y'all, my relationship with my mom, it was going well. Like, I didn't like that she woke me up out of my sleep, but it was fine. But then something shifted. When I got to high school, things started to really change. I noticed when I was in high school, my mom was no longer the most influential voice in my ear. Now, I didn't know all this back then. I kind of know this now looking back. But I had influences from all kinds of places. I had influences from my favorite TV shows. I loved watching The Cosby Show, and I loved watching Family Matters and seeing these family units on television. Big influence for me. I was also being influenced by a lot of my friends. My friends meant so much to me, and they were a big influence. But another huge influence on me was music. Now, I don't know about y'all, but when I look back and I think about the music that I was listening to in high school, I'm like, man, I had no business listening to this. Like, why were we listening to this music? So I'm wondering from y'all, like, when you think about your high school years, what music were you listening to? Now you can look back and be like, you know what? I had no business listening to this song. Now, I'm going to share a couple of my songs, and because we're streaming at Zoom and StreamYard, I don't think they're going to get my music on StreamYard. So I'm going to have to give y'all just a little snippet. Now don't get too excited because people be so excited like, "Oh, they going to sing." I'm not going to sing for real, okay? But I'm just share with y'all a couple of my songs while I wait for y'all to drop some in the chat to me. Now, one of my favorites that I used to jam to was Brandy. So it used to be I want to be down with what you're going through. I want to be down. I got any Brandy fans out there? Brandy was like the jam. Okay, Silk. Yes. I love it. Okay, another one that I was listening to, y'all, that we had no business listening to was Usher. Usher had this song. Now, baby, tell me what you want to do with me. It's 7 o'clock on the dot. It's not. You're not in a drop top. You need to get in the house and do your homework. Like, go lay down somewhere. Why was I listening to Usher? And so, y'all, for me, music was a big, big influence. And I see for some of y'all, music was a big influence. Silk, Notorious B.I.G., okay. R. Kelly, yes. Listen, okay. We were jamming back then. And Tupac, yes, I love it. And so because music was an influence, because my friends were an influence, because the things I was seeing on television was a big influence, my mom was no longer the loudest voice in my ear. And things really started to shift. So then in high school, we get this strain and tension in our relationship. And then my senior year, I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm moving out. And y'all, my mama looked at me and was like, okay, if you leaving, leave them car keys and don't come back. And I was like, well, I'm going to just go be in my room. Because it felt really risky. Like, oh, like you, okay. I don't really want to like leave and not have my car. I don't want to leave and like not be able to come back. I just want to leave for a little bit. And so as we walk through tonight, I'm going to share with y'all this listen here framework. Here's what I want you to know. Some of the things we talk about tonight are not going to be brand new things to you. Some of them are going to be things that you have heard before, things that maybe you have tried. And I want to encourage you to try again. I want to encourage you to be kind, be gentle with yourself as you're engaging with the teens that are in your life. Because y'all, people say all the time, but it's true. There is no manual for this. But what I also know is that it's possible to bridge this communication gap between adults and teens. It is very possible. And my goal is for you to walk away tonight feeling encouraged that, okay, I can bridge this gap with the teens that are in my life, whether they're my kids, whether they're my students, whether they're my counseling clients, whether they are my friends' kids, whether they are my niece and nephew, whatever the relationship is, that you can bridge the gap with them. Okay, so let's get started with listen. Listen is our framework that we're using tonight. And this is an acrostic that I created to help us really bridge this communication gap. Now, I want to tell you now, there's going to be a quiz at the end. It's going to be an open note quiz. So take notes, whatever you need to do, but there will be a quiz towards the end. Okay. Now, wherever you are, don't unmute yourself or anything, but I want you to just say, listen. Okay. Some of y'all didn't say it, so I'm going to say it again. I want you to say, listen. All right. Listen. So the first letter in listen is L, which is leave judgment at the door. Leave judgment at the door. Now, one of the things that I say often is it's easy to be judgmental of what you don't understand. I'll say it again. It's easy to be judgmental of what you don't understand. So if it doesn't make sense to me, if I can't understand why this would happen this way, if it is not the way that I would handle this situation, it is easier for me to be judgmental of that thing. So my encouragement here is to leave judgment at the door. Now, this is not like leave judgment at the door, but then pick it back up later on your way back out. No, this is lay down the things that you can be judgmental about. Now, many of us probably would argue, well, Raffinay, I'm not judgy. I wouldn't do that. But here's what I know. The things that don't make sense to us, that we don't understand, the things that we struggle to be like, what in your teenage mind made sense about that? Those are the things that we're more prone to be judgmental about. So I'm going to encourage you, drop in the chat. What are some of the things you don't understand about the teens in your life? It could be anything at all. Or maybe things you've heard other people say like, you know what? I do not understand this about the teens that I'm connected to or the teens that are in my life. The clothes they wear. Yes, that is a good one. I hear that so often. Yes, sweatshirts in the summer. We don't understand it. Why are you wearing a sweatshirt and shorts on the bottom? Those are so good. Now, those are examples of things we don't understand. You may also not understand the friends that they keep, hygiene habits. That's a good one. The music that they listen to. Yes. Why they are engaged in the things that they enjoy. It doesn't always make sense. And here's the thing, y'all. Those are the things we got to slow down and be really careful and be mindful about, because those are the things that we will be more prone to be judgmental about. If you don't get why they wear sweatshirts in the summer, you'll be looking at them like, why you got on this sweatshirt? And honestly, some of the stuff, it's not a big deal. It's like sweatshirts in the summer. It's like, go ahead, be hot, baby. Like, it's not impacting me. And this is not something I'm worth having an argument or a disagreement about. Wear your sweatshirt in the summer. But just make sure you hydrate so you ain't passing out. Okay? So I want to encourage you, leave judgment at the door. A great way that you can bring attention and focus on this is to consider, like, what are some of the things that I don't understand about the teen in my life? If you just give yourself a moment to sit and think about those things, it can help you to ensure that you're going to be minimizing the judgment that could rise up if one of these areas come up, or multiple of these areas. So it may not just be one thing. But remember, it's easy, y'all, to be judgmental of what you don't understand. Okay? That's our first letter in listen. Now let's jump to I. I is ignore distractions. Ignore distractions. Now, y'all, we live in a world full of distractions. So many distractions in our day-to-day life. You'll see on the screen that I listed a few of them, and this is not an all-inclusive list, but there are distractions that we encounter each and every day. Some of those distractions are internal, but some of those distractions are external to us. So when I say internal distractions, I'm talking about things like your biological needs. So if you're hungry, if you're sleepy, if you have not had enough energy for the day, that's an internal, maybe biological need that you have. Now, external stuff could be things like work, other family members, the TV, social media, your phone, your tablet. Anything that's outside of you could be an external distraction. Now, here's what I want y'all to know. Distractions are going to happen. So I didn't say here with this letter, like, never be distracted, because that's not realistic. You're going to have distractions. The thing is, when the distractions come up, what are you going to do with those distractions? So I want to give you a second to think about, in my own life, in my connection with the teen in my world, what are my distractions? Is it social media? Do I find that like TikTok gets me in a scroll and I get really distracted from really being able to connect with my team, and bridge that communication gap? Is it the television? Do you really enjoy watching TV? And if your kids come up or the kids in your life, you watching TV, you locked in, you like, what'd you say? Yeah. Have y'all ever been in a conversation like that with somebody where you're talking with them and they're like, yeah, oh, wow, that's crazy. And you're thinking, I didn't say anything that warranted that kind of response. And I know that I've been guilty of it too. So this is not a space for you to be really hard on yourself or to beat up on yourself. That's not what this is. This is really a space to be honest though and say like, ooh, how have I allowed distractions to get in the way of this communication gap that could exist between me and the teens in my life? Here's the thing. The distractions are going to come up. Can you remove it? Can you reduce the likelihood of it coming up? Can you separate yourself from the distraction? So let's say, for example, phone is yours. Can you be intentional when your kid comes around? You know what? I'm going to put my phone down and I'm going to make eye contact and I'm going to engage in a conversation with them. If it's TikTok, if it's social media, maybe you want to put some limits on your phone. If you find that work is one of those things that becomes a distraction for you, if your kid comes to you, maybe it's like, you know what? Hey, I'm in the middle of a work thing. Give me 5 minutes and then I will come find you. Now, here's the thing about this, y'all. If you say to the teen in your life, give me X amount of minutes and I will come back to you, you got to make good on that. You got to actually come back to them. The onus and the responsibility is not on them to come back to you, because whether you know it or not, you are sending a message if you do not make good on this thing that you said you're going to do. So if you said, I'm going to come find you in 5 minutes, they may or may not be timing you. But if you do not come back, you have sent a message, probably unintentionally, that maybe this is not that important to me. Maybe that you are not that important to me. Maybe that I didn't have time to prioritize this. And I really do believe that most parents and folks in the lives of teens are doing the best they can with the information that they have. And I don't believe that most people are being malicious or intentional in trying to communicate a message of, you are not that important to me. You are not a priority. But that's sometimes what happens when we don't make good on the things that we say we're going to do. So I would love to hear from y'all. Drop in the chat. If you're on Facebook or YouTube or wherever, drop in the chat over there. What are some of your distractions? If you think about it, maybe two. Like, what are 2 things that you find can be distractions for you? Whether it's your phone, whether it's social media, whether it's work, whether it's other family members. Maybe you've got multiple kids in your life and you find that it's hard to keep up with everybody. Maybe sometimes you find that you just get in your own head and your own thoughts. Remember, I talked about internal stuff too. So maybe it's like I get distracted by my own thoughts because there's so much going on in my head. Yeah, I see some of y'all saying phone. I see work. I see the phone, social media, phone games. Yeah, that's real. And here's the thing. I appreciate y'all sharing. Thank you so much for sharing and dropping in the chat. What do you want to do with your distractions? Because it's one thing for you to have awareness that you got these distractions. It's another thing to decide, I'm going to do something about these distractions. So if it's social media, what do you want to do with your social media when it comes to engaging with your teen so that you can ignore that distraction? If it's your phone, what do you want to do with your phone so that you can ignore that distraction if it pops up when it's time for you to be communicating with your teen? If it's work, what do you want to do with work so that you can ignore those distractions when it comes to engaging with your teen? Because here's the thing, y'all. The point of all of this is to bridge and to close the communication gap that exists there. So what happens when your kid comes up and you're on your phone and you're not fully focused on them, or social media is distracting you, or you're playing a game? You're communicating, you're sending a message to them of something. I don't know what the message is. It varies team to team, but it could be this is not that important to them. They don't have enough time to pause and check in with me. And I really do believe that most of us are not trying to communicate that. So I want to encourage you to think about and decide, okay, If I'm really going to ignore these distractions, here's how I can go about doing it. Because it's one thing to know that you've got the distraction, but the second step of that awareness is deciding, okay, I'm going to actually do something about it, versus I just know that it's the distraction and we'll see what happened and leave it up to chance. I don't want y'all to leave it up to chance. It's too risky. We ain't got to leave it up to chance. Okay? So I want to recap for us our first two letters. So L was leave judgment at the door, because remember I told you we're going to have an open note quiz at the end. So L is leave judgment at the door. I is ignore distractions for my note takers. Leave judgment at the door, ignore distractions. Okay, let's move on to S. S is show your interest. Show your interest. For those of you write notes, show your interest. Now, with this one, this is one of my favorite ones. There are lots of different ways that we can show our interest with the teens in life. We have things like our body language. We have facial expressions. We have our tone of voice. We have those things that they call minimal encouragers. So those are the things that we say when we're in conversation, like, yeah, what else? You're not really saying anything, but you're communicating. I want you to continue talking. Now, with us showing our interest and being intentional, I don't have time to exhaust all of the ways that we show our interest, but I do want to kind of hone in a little bit on facial expressions. And the reason I choose facial expressions is because it's one that I really have to work on. And so I love being able to talk to other people and hear from folks about like your facial expressions. So I just want you to think for a second, like, what do you know about your own facial expressions? Whether it's my face is busy and it be saying all the things, my face stays blank. I don't try to give stuff away in my face. My face can say everything and I've never opened my mouth to say a word. Like, where do you fall on the spectrum? Tell me about your particular facial expressions. What do you see happen? Okay. You said my face speaks for me often. Yes. Listen, I resonate deeply with that. My face doesn't cooperate. Okay. I love it. It says everything. I'm a book. Okay. So for most of y'all in the room, it's like, hey, my face is giving it away. It's not doing what I want it to do. It's giving things away. And I am the same kind of way. And, you know, I think I inherited this from my mama, who I told y'all about a little bit earlier, because my mom used to look at me from across the room and I knew exactly what it meant. She ain't have to open her mouth, but she could give me a look. It is like, oh, you gonna get it when you get home, or you gonna get it when I get over closer to you. Now, y'all, what becomes so powerful about our facial expressions is this. What are we communicating when we are engaged in conversation, when we are connecting with the teens in our lives? Are our facial expressions communicating, I'm relaxed, listening to you, and I'm focused in? Is our facial expression communicating, how much longer are you gonna be talking? I gotta go watch my show on Netflix. Like, when is it gonna be over? Are our facial expressions communicating like, oh my, like I could just strangle you? Like, why in the world would you do that? Are our facial expressions communicating maybe like, I'm really disappointed with you. Like, I didn't anticipate that we would be in this space. Now, I am not suggesting that we be robots, that we not communicate with our facial expressions. I think we can communicate a lot in our facial expressions. The thing is, we want to ensure that we're actually connecting what's on our face with what's actually coming out of our mouth. I'll give y'all an example I like to use. So let's say your kid is younger and they like riding their bike out in the middle of the street, right? Most adults, if they saw a kid riding their bike in the middle of the street, would be like, oh my God, why you, like, get out the street, da, da, da. We don't want you to get hit, right? And it comes across as like anger to the kid because there's this yelling and there's this like frantic kind of, but what's happening internally for the adult is there's a little bit of panic or a little bit concern. There's this being able to see ahead to play this movie out and be like, this could be a dangerous situation. When a parent could say, hey, remember we talked about this. It is important to ride your bike on the sidewalk or in the driveway because we don't want you to get hit by a car. Now, that requires some slowing down and being intentional and making sure that your facial expression, your tone of voice, your body language is actually communicating what you want it to communicate to your team. So often, what I think happens is, in this example with the anger, is like there's one thing that's being presented, but underneath, there's something else that's actually going on. So I could be presenting that I'm angry, and that's how my teen is receiving it, but underneath might actually be some concern or some hurt or some disappointment. And it's okay for us to feel those things, for us to experience that, for us to want to communicate that. We just want to make sure that all this stuff, y'all, is congruent. Because you don't want to be saying one thing with your face, but saying something else out of your mouth. You don't want to be saying, "Oh, I really care about you." Like, you would be like, "What? I can't see it. Oh, I just love you." Like, are you sure? Like, I would be wondering if you were sure. And so you want to make sure, again, all of these things go together. So although I'm giving you each of these letters in pieces, they all marry together and they all coexist to be a beautiful like package so that you can bridge this gap with your team. Okay. So show your interest. Because we got a few extra, well, I'm a little ahead of where I plan to be. I want to talk also about our body language. So body language is another way we show interest. Anybody have any thoughts? You can unmute if you want to unmute, or you can drop it in the chat about like what makes our body language so important, or why might we want to be mindful of this, of our body language as we're engaging with our teams. They pick up on it. Yeah, totally. They absolutely pick up on it. Your body language speaks louder than your words. Yeah, that's good, Dr. Christie. It can. If I came in here tonight, y'all know at the beginning when I was talking, I was like, I'm so excited to be here. If I came here and was like, I'm so excited to be here, y'all be like, are you? Like, your body language is not telling us that you are excited in addition to your tone of voice. And so y'all, body language is so important. One of the things I encourage, people think about this more with smaller kids than they do with teenagers, but there is value and power in like being eye to eye and on the same level. It can be easy to be having a conversation and to like be standing up over your teen, and not intentionally like you about to, you know, jump at them and do something, but just like if you think about your size compared to your kid, unless your kid is a giant, and I realize some kids are bigger than their parents, but that could be intimidating. And depending on what the message is that you're sending or you're trying to communicate, it could cause this gap in communication to be widened because it feels like, oh gosh, I'm at this like unfair advantage. And so if you can sit and be eye to eye with your team, that can be really powerful to bridging the communication gap, to make sure that they know like, hey, we're just having a conversation. We're connecting here. I'm not trying to like loom over you. Being open in your body language. Y'all, you can feel the things that you're feeling. So one of the things that's important to me as a mental health professional is I'm so big on emotions, and we're going to talk about emotions in a second. But I encourage people to feel what it is that they're feeling. So I am not communicating, don't feel what you feel. I am communicating, be intentional about what all of you is communicating, even when you're feeling what you're feeling. So if you're feeling something really big and you need a break, or you need to go have some time by yourself, it's okay to say that, to be like, you know what, I can't talk about this right now. Let's come back to this tomorrow. Let's come back to this after we eat dinner tonight, to give yourself some space. But what I was going to say was being intentional, even to have open body language. So I know y'all can't see my whole body, but like this tends to communicate that I am closed off and not open. And so as best as you can, having open body language when you're communicating with your team, you're seeing them at the end of the day, being, I'm excited to see you today, not being like, hey, what's up? I'm excited. It's small things like that, y'all, that communicate a lot. And like Dr. Christie said, your body language speaks so much louder than your words. And again, it's one of those areas where message sent might not be message received. You might not be intentionally trying to communicate that you're closed off in your body language. yet it could. And it may deter your teen from coming to share things with you or opening up with you. All right. Okay. Let's look at our next letter. So we just went over S, show your interest. We talked about eye contact. I mean, not eye contact, facial expressions and body language. And now we're going to look at T. T is tell them what you heard. Tell them what you heard. Now, this is your opportunity where you get to talk back to your team, where you get to share with them what it is that you heard. Now, what's important here that I really want to drive home is that when you are telling them what you heard, I want to encourage you to seek clarity and ensure understanding. That's the goal here. Seeking clarity and ensure understanding. Because sometimes as your teens are talking with you, remember I said earlier, it's easy to be judgmental of what you don't understand. So if they're saying something that you don't understand, it may be possible that you may walk away from that discussion or be in the midst of that discussion and be interpreting the message in a way that they did not intend. So this is a great place to ask questions. I really encourage open-ended questions. So your open-ended questions are things that need an answer beyond yes or no. So a closed-ended question, is it raining outside? No. Did you do your homework? Yes. Is your room clean? Kinda. So they give you something a little more than that. Now, closed-ended questions are not all bad, so we don't want to throw them all away. We want to ensure that we're marrying those, though, with open-ended questions. So you want to ask things, who, what, when, where, how. And the last one that we usually talk about is why. But I'm going to encourage you to not ask why questions. Now, you might be like, Refne, I got why questions and I be wanting to know. Okay, I get it. You probably do have some why questions and you probably do want to know some things. But here's what I know about why questions. Why questions tend to cause people to get like this. People are like, I got to defend myself if somebody's asking why. Because when they ask why, it's like, well, why'd you do this? It's like, okay, I got to protect myself. You've probably experienced that even as an adult. Somebody asks you a why question and you like, I got to protect myself. Now, here's the thing. You can get to the essence of a why question without actually asking why. So you may, I love this part because y'all, I'm going to encourage you to practice where you are. You don't have to unmute yourself or anything, but I am going to encourage you to practice. Now, instead of asking a teen, why did you do that? You could ask them, what led to you making that decision? What led to you making that decision? Now, here's the thing, y'all. You got to pair it with the other letters that we just talked about. So you got to leave the judgment at the door. You got to be ignoring the distractions. You got to be showing your interest. You can't be like, what led to you making that decision? Because that's what Refne told me to ask you. Okay? That's not going to go over well. But being intentional about your body language, your tone of voice, your facial expression, all of that. So I want you to practice. I'm going to count to 3. And when I get to 3, I want you to say, what led to you making that decision? Now, we're going to do this 3 times. So I want you to notice what happens over the course of the 3 times that we do this. Okay. So the question is, what led to you making that decision? Okay. So 1, 2, 3. What led to you making that decision? Okay. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. What led to you making that decision? Okay, one more time. You're with you, so you know how your facial expressions are looking, how your body language is. I want you to try it one more time. 1, 2, 3. What led to you making that decision? Now, I'm curious. What did you notice as you said it from the first time to the 3rd time? Any differences you notice? You can drop them in the chat or unmute if you want to. What did you notice? I softened. Okay. My tone changed. Yeah. That's usually what I hear people say. I became more curious. Yes. So good. Right? So here's the thing. You can practice this anytime. Now, you may be sitting out there. You might be like, Refne, my question is not what led to you making that decision. I'm not asking it. And that's fine. But here's what you can do. You can take your commonly asked why questions and reword them. So if you tend to ask your teens, why did you do that? Why are your chores not done? Why didn't you do XYZ? Why you ain't turned in your homework? Why you ain't cleaned your room? Whatever it is you tend to ask, the why questions, write those questions down. And then consider, okay, how could I still get to the essence of this question and eliminate the word why? Maybe it's help me understand. Instead of why are your chores not done, help me understand what kept you from getting your chores done. Tell me, how are you planning to meet the expectation of completing your chores? Because that's your contribution to the family. Now, again, we've got to pair this with our tone of voice, with our facial expressions and all of that. Yet, you're likely going to minimize them getting like this if you eliminate the why question. Okay. Does anybody want to drop me one? I'll do one on the spot. Like, drop me a why question that you commonly ask, and let's see if we can rework it. Maybe something that you ask the teen in your life. And while I'm waiting on y'all to drop that, I want to say one other thing about this. When you are asking these questions, it is important that you're actually open to hear what the answer is. Sometimes we ask questions like, why you ain't clean your room? Why would you do that? When in actuality, we don't really want to know, because we've already made up in our mind that whatever they say is going to be an excuse, and it's not going to be sufficient. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I have been guilty of that. And so really be intentional. Make sure that you are open to hearing what it is that they have to say. Because if you are seeking clarity, like I mentioned, and trying to get understanding, ensuring that you have an understanding, you really can begin to, y'all, I'm sorry. I didn't want balloons. That's Apple reactions. You really want to ensure that you are bridging this gap. And so if you're asking, well, why did this happen? Why didn't this happen? But you don't actually want to listen. You don't actually want to seek understanding. You don't want to ensure that there's clarity there. Then there's no point in really doing it. Okay. So I saw we got 2 questions. So maybe I'll do them both. Okay. So the first one is, why didn't you empty the trash in the bathroom? Okay. And then why didn't you tell me? Ooh, these are good ones. Okay. So, and I have not practiced this. So I'm just going to do this on the spot for anybody wondering, like, are these pre-canned questions? They are not. I literally just asked right now. Okay. So why did you empty the trash in the bathroom? So it may be a question here of, hey, remind me of what the expectations are when you're cleaning the bathroom. Let them answer and tell you. Because then if they say, oh, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to empty the trash, then it's like, hey, what happened that the trash didn't get empty? Now, if they don't list empty the trash, then it could be a question like, remember we talked about emptying the trash, and I noticed that it wasn't emptied on XYZ date. So you're still getting at done, yet you're approaching it with curiosity. You're trying to ensure that you understand. Did something get in the way of you doing your chores? I noticed that your bathroom trash wasn't empty. Another way to word it. Okay, let's see. Erica said this is gonna be good. I hope so. Okay, why didn't you tell me? Okay, that's a good one too. Why didn't you tell me? Okay, there's a couple things that came to mind. So the first thing that came to my mind was, I want to be a safe space for you to talk about stuff. And I'm curious if there's something that like stood in the way of you sharing with me. First thing that came to mind. The second thing that came to mind was maybe not focusing it on you, but asking, hey, did you share this with anybody or with a trusted adult? So maybe it wasn't you. Maybe they trust a teacher or auntie or cousin. Did you share this thing with any other trusted adult in your life? When you got hard things, difficult things, scary things going on in your life, who do you feel comfortable sharing those things with? This is actually a conversation I had recently with my niece. My niece is 15, y'all. And I made that face because I'm not ready. She's 15 and she's a sophomore in high school. And she had a really rough go a few weeks ago. And so we were having a conversation and I asked her, I'm not going to say her name, but I said, niece, when you've got like heavy things going on or tough things going on, what adult do you talk to about those things? And I didn't really want to know what friends she talked to because the severity of the issue would warrant an adult needing to be involved. And so she said to me, well, Nene, that's what she calls me. Nene, it depends on what it is. So these kinds of things, I'll talk to my brother. These kind of things, I'll talk to this person. And these kind of things, I may talk to you about it. I'm like, okay. Is there anybody you feel comfortable talking to these things about even before you share with one of your friends? And so we were able to really explore, like, who are those people in her life in a way that my hope was that she didn't get like this. She didn't get defensive and feel like I've got to protect myself, but that she felt like we were having an open dialogue. And I was genuinely trying to be curious because I wasn't just thinking about that moment, but I'm also thinking about future moments. Like, how can I plant seeds for her to be thinking about, okay, if something like this was to happen again, who could I talk to? Does that make sense? I hope so. Those were great questions. Thank y'all. I'm gonna put those into my presentation in the future because those are very good. Okay, y'all. We got 2 more letters, but I'm gonna do a little review. So L was leave judgment at the door. I is ignore distractions. S is show your interest. And T is tell them what you heard. Thanks, Erica. Okay, so we're moving on to E. E is empathize with emotions. Empathize with emotions. Let me get y'all E. Uh-oh. That's not E, y'all. This is E. Empathize with emotions. Now, one of the things I want to remind you before I start talking about E is that the goal is to be kind and be gentle with yourself. This work that I'm encouraging y'all to do is not passive work, y'all. It's active, it's intentional work, and it requires some slowing down. The goal is not to walk away from tonight and beat yourself up or be like, oh my God, they said I'm doing all these things and it's not good. I'm not saying that. There probably are things that are going really well in your relationship with your teen. And what I tend to see happen is that people don't always give themselves credit for what is going well. So I want you to be kind with yourself as you're thinking through, like, how could I impact my dynamic with the teens in my life? Okay, so let's talk about E. E is empathize with emotions. Now, one of the things I say all the time is agreement is not required in empathy. I will say that again. Agreement is not required in empathy. So what does that mean? I do not have to agree with whatever emotions or feelings that you're having in order for me to empathize with you. And sometimes I think people think that that is necessary, that I got to agree with it. I got to make it make sense. Going back to that, like leaving judgment at the door and making sure that, like, the things that I don't understand, that I'm not being judgmental of those. So y'all, here's what empathy is, what empathy is not. Empathy is not putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. I'm on a mission to dispel that lie. I hear people say that all the time. Oh, empathy, you just got to put yourself in their shoes. And I'm just like, but if I put myself in their shoes, it's still me. So that's always going to fall flat. It's always going to come up short because I'm in their shoes. Now, here's what empathy is. Empathy is I'm attempting to understand your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences from your vantage point. So how does this apply with our teenagers? Okay. If I am a 40-year-old parent, my 40-year-old self is attempting to understand my 15-year-old's thoughts, my 15-year-old's perspectives, my 15-year-old's experiences from their 15-year-old living in 2024 with social media and the world being whatever it is today perspective. And y'all, that is not an easy thing to do. I am a mental health professional, and this is the crux of my work as a therapist. To have empathy for my clients, to have empathy for my littles, to have empathy for the people in my life. And y'all, it's not easy. So I'm not going to sit here and paint a picture for you that's like, oh, it's a breeze and you're going to do great. You probably don't struggle because it will take some time and some intentionality. Here's the thing, y'all. I hear parents and adults say all the time, like, oh, I've been a teenager. Oh, I've been 15. Oh, I've been 18. And it's like, that's true because you're whatever big age you are today, yet you have not been a teenager living in 2024 with technology being what it is, with the world being what it is, living after a global pandemic and all the things that these kids have exposure to and experience. When I look at the things that my niece is talking to me about at 15, I'm like, I didn't know half this stuff when I was a 15-year-old. Like, was I super like sheltered or something? And I wasn't, but I'm just like, with the rise of technology and social media, they literally have everything at their fingertips. If they got a phone, they can look it up. They can find whatever it is what they're looking for. And so I want us to be cautious and be mindful of minimizing their experience because I've been 15, because I've been 18, because I know what it's like to be a sophomore in high school. It's like, I mean, you do. And I'm not saying you don't. I'm saying you do and you don't know what it's like today, right now, for them. Even if we just look at like the difference in the, we also can look at the difference between being male versus female. We can look at the difference between the towns and the cities. Some of y'all grew up in the country. Some of your kids are living in like big cities and going to school. Like there are so many factors. So why is this important and why I'm harping on this? Because your agreement is not required for you to be empathetic of their experience. So one of the examples I love to use all the time is this. Let's say your kid comes to you and they're like, oh my God, I had such a hard day at school today. And you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Like, Johnny took my pen and it just messed up my day. And you like, I got 9,000 pens. Like, what are we talking about? Just get you a new pen out of my office. Y'all, that is a classic example of minimizing their emotional experience. That is a great opportunity to be like, dang, like, tell me some more about that. How did that impact the rest of your day? Who is Johnny to you? If you don't even know who Johnny is, it might give you some more context to know, like, Johnny is my best friend and I can't believe he would take something from me. That was offensive. That was rude. That was disrespectful. I had a test. It delayed me getting started on my test, but then I had to find a new pen. That's a great opportunity to empathize with their emotional experience. Is it going to matter tomorrow? Probably not. Is it going to matter next week? Probably not. Is it going to matter next month? Very possible not. But that's not the point. The point is, it's important to them in that moment. And so their emotional experience, y'all, is real. I tell my clients all the time, emotions are real and they serve a purpose. So often people are judgy and dismissive of their emotional experiences, their own and other people's. And so if you can be intentional to not minimize, but to empathize with your teen's emotional experience, you might not get it. It might not make sense to you. It might seem nonsensical. You may even think this is not going to matter in 3 weeks. And you may be right. Yet, it is a great opportunity for connection and bridging that gap, y'all. Because that's the point of all this, right? That's why we're here tonight. We're talking about bridging the communication gap. So if you like, I got all the pens in the world for you, you potentially have contributed to the gap being exacerbated, to them being like, see, that's why I don't talk to you about nothing. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, I want to know from y'all, like, as you think about this and hear me talk about empathizing with emotions, is there anything that comes to mind that's like, ooh, I could empathize more with emotions by doing this, by maybe slowing down and being intentional to listen, by asking more questions. Maybe I can empathize with their emotions by being aware of what's going on with my own emotions. Because if I don't know what's going on with me, it's harder for me to be empathetic of what's going on with them. Like anything come to mind, feel free to drop it in the chat. How can you be intentional to empathize with the emotions of the teens that are in your life and space. Because remember, empathy is not about, I'm putting myself in your shoes. Empathy is about understanding your thoughts, your perspective from your vantage point. And that requires quite a bit of intentionality. Slowing down and being present. Yeah, that's good. Listening. Yeah, absolutely. Locking in, actively listening. One of the things I like to do that helps me is just validating. Like, man, that sounds tough. Or asking, how was that for you? Like, sometimes I don't have to try to figure it out or attribute meaning to it. Like, Johnny took your hand, so that meant what to you? Okay. We got one more. We rocking and rolling. The last letter in listen, y'all, is N. And N stands for no interruptions. No interruptions. No interruptions. Do not interrupt. Now, I didn't say never interrupt, and that's intentionally, because sometimes interruptions can be helpful. Because if we interrupt sometimes, what could be helpful about that? Just drop in the chat, and I'll come to those in a second. Like, if I did interrupt somebody, that could be helpful in what kind of way? Now, here's what I want you to know. Interruptions are one of the quickest ways to close off communication. You ever been in a conversation with somebody and they just be cutting you off, and you be like, are you going to let me get it out? Like, let me say what I got to say. That happens with our teams sometimes. We jump in there, or we like, I know what they about to say, so let me speed this up. Or they take it too long. Or I got stuff to do. Y'all, giving them the opportunity to talk, to share, when they're willing to talk and share, because I realize they're not always willing to talk and share. When they are, it's crucial. Dr. Christie said it. It can help you clarify. So we can sometimes use interruptions to clarify, to ask more questions, to be like, hey, I think I got lost somewhere. Can we go back before we keep going forward? So there are instances where interruptions can be okay. But I want you to know that in general terms, I want us to just slow down and be mindful of the interruptions, because sometimes the interruption is more for us than it is for them. So it's like, oh, I'm tired of this, or I'm ready to move on, or I don't want this anymore, or I don't care about this. I'm not that interested. And so I'm going to just interrupt it. We can get this alone. That's what I want us to be careful of when we're interrupting for our own, like, this for me, and not necessarily for the sake of our relationship or for the sake of this interaction that we're having. One of the things that I want y'all to know and be mindful of in our westernized culture, this happens often. When people are ready to talk, they usually start to open their mouth. And because I told you this, you're going to start looking for it, and you're going to start noticing it as you're engaging with people in the world. So people will be having dialogue and conversation. And what you'll start to notice is when people are ready to talk, or they're ready to jump in there, they'll start to be like, yeah. I was like, they trying to figure out how to get in there. And so you can start to pay attention and be mindful of your own mouth. Like, as your team is sharing and talking with you, be mindful if you're starting to open your mouth. Like, I just got to jump in there. Now, again, it's okay to interrupt if it's going to help you get some clarity, if it's going to help you like get some more information because you don't want to get lost in the context of the conversation. That's okay. Sometimes it can be helpful to just jot down what it is that you like. I don't want to forget this. I want to come back to this later, but I don't want to interrupt it. Just say what it is you're doing. Oh, I'm writing this down because I want you to finish, but I don't want to forget this. That's okay. But be mindful of what your own mouth is doing and how it might start opening up when you're ready to jump in there with your teenager. Okay? You may notice it with other people too, as you're having conversations or as you're observing conversations in the workplace, out in the wild, as I like to call it, just living your day-to-day life, seeing people at the gym and the grocery store, wherever it is that you go, you may notice, oh, they started opening their mouth and they were ready to start talking. They were ready to jump in there. Because, again, we want to make sure we're doing things to help us bridge the gap and not continue to widen or exacerbate the gap. Okay. So it's time for our pop quiz. Now, LaCheryl has already equipped y'all, but we're going to go through it anyway to make sure everybody is on the same page. Everybody has got all the letters and listen. Okay. So let's do a little bit of review of each letter. So L stands for what? You can say it out loud where you are. You ain't got to unmute, but L is leave judgment at the door. Okay. That's our first one. Leave judgment at the door. I stands for ignore distractions. I'm assuming everybody is getting 100 so far. Okay. S stands for show your interest. So remember, show your interest, facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, those minimal encouragers. Okay. T stands for T is tell them what you heard. This is where you're seeking clarity and ensuring that you have understanding. Okay. E stands for empathize with emotions. Remember, agreement is not required in empathy. And then our last one, N, is no interruptions. Now, here's your homework. Okay, because you can't come to a free seminar, workshop, Raffinay, and not get some homework. Everybody gets homework. Okay. The first thing I want you to do is pick a letter and listen that you want to focus on. So I went through 6 letters tonight, and what I see happen sometimes is you go to a seminar and you're like, yes, I'm empowered, I'm equipped. Raffinay told me what to do. I'm about to go do it all and kill it. Boom. And I'm like, okay, slow your roll. Like, just pick one. So I'll put them back on the screen. Maybe you want to be mindful of judgment. Maybe you want to be intentional about like the things you don't understand, making sure that you're not being judgy. Maybe you want to be more intentional to empathize with emotions because maybe you struggle and be like, this ain't gonna matter tomorrow. Like, feel differently. Maybe you want to focus in on showing your interest. Maybe you like, Raffinay, I don't really be caring about some of the stuff they be talking to me about, but you won't actually practice showing your interest and caring because when you care about the things that they care about, that shows them that you care about them. When you like, I don't even understand why you listen to this. Why you listen to this kind of music? They internalize that. That means that's about them. And many times parents are not trying to communicate that, but I hear it in the therapy room, y'all, all the time. All my parents, they don't really like me. They don't really like the music I listen to. And I'm like, wait, how did we get there? But that's the connection they make. So whatever letter you're picking is fine. But I want you to tell me, what letter are you picking? Just drop it in the chat. You don't have to write the whole thing out. You can just put L-I-S-T-E or N. What letter are you picking? The next thing I want you to do is pick when you're going to start. So when are you going to start focusing in on this letter? It's Tuesday, October 22nd. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm going to give myself the rest of this week to think about it. I'm going to start on Monday. Okay. Maybe you say, okay, I'm going to start tomorrow, Wednesday, fresh. Drop to me in the chat when you're going to start. Whenever you pick to start, it's fine. As long as you don't hit me with, I'm going to start in 2025. Somebody did that at a workshop before, y'all. They were like, I'm going to start next year. It was not December. So when do you want to start? Whatever letter you're picking, when are you going to start? I see some ends, so no interruptions. I see show your interest. I see show your interest, ignore distractions. Tomorrow, next week, tonight. Okay, cool. And then your last action item. Tell me, how can you extend kindness to yourself as you practice? One of the things I see happen sometimes is that people get really hard on themselves. They beat up on themselves. They're like, I didn't do it. Raffinay told me to not ask why question. I asked why question. That's not the goal. The goal is not to beat up on yourself. So I want you to think about what can you do to extend kindness to yourself as you practice, because that's what's happening. Maybe it's, I'm going to remind myself that I'm practicing and that I don't have to be perfect. Maybe I'm reminding myself one day at a time. Maybe I'm extending kindness to myself by calling a friend that I know will be kind and gentle and will encourage me. Maybe it will be looking at an old picture of my kid, remind me that like this relationship is really precious and it's one day at a time that gets us to where we're trying to get. Whatever you pick is just fine, but I want to encourage you to think now, think in advance about how you're going to be gentle, how you're going to be kind with yourself. Now, every time I do this workshop, I usually pick a letter that I'm also going to focus on because Even though I'm teaching y'all this material and I'm going over this, y'all, I'm still a work in progress. I still mess it up. I don't always get it right. And so I'm not up here telling y'all stuff that I'm not practicing myself on my littles and in relationship with my friends and my family and the people that I love and I care about. Y'all, I practice this all the time. Okay. So this go round, my letter with this group that I'm working on is ignoring distractions. I have noticed that my phone has been a problem lately. I just being trying to do multiple things. And here's the thing. I know I can't do multiple things. I am not a multitasker. Somebody talking to me and I'm scrolling, I'm listening to you. Like I'm getting bits and pieces. I might be getting fragments, but so that's me. I'm gonna work on ignoring my distractions. Okay, let's see. I want to see what y'all said y'all gonna do to be gentle. Reminding myself that we all need grace, and just like I'm extending grace to others, I have to extend grace to myself. Ooh, that's so good. Yes, we all do need grace. And just like, listen, that's a word, Christy. Just like you extend grace to other people, you can extend it to yourself. Being a friend to you. I love that. Not expecting perfection right out the gate. Yes. That I get a hug at the end. Yes, that's great. I love it. Self. Oh, better college. And our relationship was very, very strange. And at one point I called and I was like, I don't know. Can y'all see me? Can y'all hear me? Is it sketchy? Somebody said it might be breaking up. So I'll make sure everybody can see me. Okay, it's better. Sorry. I don't know what happened. Internet, gets sketchy technology, y'all. So I was saying, I want to tell y'all about my relationship with my mom, that it didn't get better. When I was in college, I remember calling my mom once and I was like, hey, Mom, what do you think about our relationship? Because I just felt like our relationship was not amazing. And I was curious what she thought about it. And she said, I wish we talked more. And I was like, oh my God, like I felt the same way. And I was like, yes, me too. Like, what can we do to work on and be intentional about our relationship? And I don't want y'all to have to wait till your kids are in college. I want you to have to wait until 5 years, 6 years, however old the kids in your life are, in order for you to get that thriving and healthy relationship. And I'm so grateful that today my relationship with my mom is really sweet. Like, she is my biggest supporter. She is always here. She's like, whatever you need, I got you. And I really enjoy her. Like, I don't feel like, oh, this is my mama, I gotta call her. Like, I do not feel that way at all. I'll be like, I cannot wait to call my mama, like, and talk and catch up with her. And I want that for each of you. I want that for whatever relationship you find yourself in. It doesn't have to be a parent relationship. Again, it might be an auntie or a godparent or an uncle, or it might be an educator or a counselor, that you would really be able to bridge that gap with the teens in your life. Because here's what I know. Our teens need connection and they need healthy and trusted adults that they can rely on. There's so much foolishness going on in this world today. And I just shudder to think the things these teens are having to experience and that they're being exposed to. And so you are that to some teen in your life, whether it's your kid, an extended family member, whether it's a student of yours, a client of yours, you have the opportunity to be really influential in their lives. Now, I want to share with y'all an opportunity that's coming up that I am just ecstatic about. Like, if you find that you're in a place where you're like, I want to dig deeper, I want to go even more into this in relationship with my teens, this may be something for you. Now, I am wondering how many of you out there, and you don't have to raise your hand or anything, but how many of you find yourself in this place where you're like, oh, I want to continue to bridge this gap with the teen in my life? Maybe you are in a place where you're like, ooh, Raffinay, like I really struggle to ask questions of my teens that give me more than just a one-word answer, like a fine, okay, good, yesterday. Maybe you're in a place where you're like, oh, I really want to dig deeper into this empathy thing and really being able to like not agree with them, but be able to empathize with their emotional experience. Maybe you find yourself comparing yourself to your teen. Maybe you're that parent that's like, or that adult that's like, oh, I've been a teenager, so I already know. And you're struggling with comparison. Maybe you wonder what else is going on in their life. Like maybe it feels like they're not sharing all the things with me. Or maybe you just want to learn how to create a safe space for you and your team to really talk. Y'all, I have been working on this for so long. And if I linger too long, I might get a little weepy about it. So I'm not going to. But I am going to be hosting a parent and teen conference in January. So we are just under 3 months away. What I see happening out here, I see stuff for parents. I see stuff for kids. I don't see stuff for parents and kids to come together and learn the same stuff in the same space and then talk about how is this applicable to our relationship. And so I decided I was going to do something about the gap that I see that's out there because I want to ensure that parents are getting these needs met, that they are able to really connect with their teens in a way that is healthy, where their relationship can thrive, where their relationship can continue to flourish and grow. So the Listen Here Parent and Teen Conference is coming to the Dallas area on Saturday, January 18, 2025. Now that is Martin Luther King weekend, so the kids will be out of school on Monday. So if you don't live in the DFW area and you want to take a trip, come on up. We would love to have you. Now, just now dropped in the chat is a link to the registration page. Here's what I want y'all to know. We would love to have you join us. And the rate that is available tonight through Friday at midnight is the lowest rate that it is going to be. Now, I'm not saying that to try to make you sign up today and make sure you secure your spot. I just want to tell you, if you wait, it's going to go up. And it's going to go up significantly, okay? Now, ultimately, I'm doing this work because I'm so passionate about it, y'all. I love, love, love working with teenagers. I do a lot of work with teenagers as a mental health professional. I love supporting parents and adults in the lives of teens. And that's why I do stuff like this, like these free seminars, because I really believe that it's possible to bridge the gap. But I also see that nobody is doing this. And because I'm passionate about this, because I have this dream, because I feel like I have this gift, I'm like, I want to be able to go and share it with people. So y'all, we've got speakers. We're going to have main sessions. We're going to have breakout sessions. The conference is going to be from 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. So from 10 to 6, it's going to be conference. Lunch is going to be included. You're going to get a swag bag. It's going to be a great day. And then from 6 to 8:30, we're having an after party. Y'all, and the after party is going to be amazing. The conference team met last night and we were talking about things that we're going to do during the after party. And I'm just so fired up because the point of the after party after a full day of learning really is just to have fun and connect with your kids. You've had all this day of information and education and figuring out how are we going to apply this to our relationship. And then we just want to create space for you to really connect with your kids and connect with other parents and teams that are there. So like I said, y'all, you can register at the same link where you signed up for this session. If you click the link or use the link in the chat, it's listenhearelive.com. And here is this kind of here, HEAR. Registration, y'all, is like a little more than $50 a person. When I tell you that's a steal for an all-day conference, for all the things that you're going to get, it is a steal. And I would love, love, love to have you in a place to have you have this opportunity to really connect with the kids and to be able to offer support to y'all. Now, I know that we are just about at our time. I told y'all I would hang out with y'all for about 75 minutes. And so I want to honor that time. So I do want to open it up to answer any questions. So if you got to go, I totally get it. Thank you for joining us tonight. But if anybody had any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. You can drop them in the chat. You can unmute yourself and I will hang out for a few minutes and answer any questions that there might be. Okay. I'm going to share this also with y'all. This is just a QR code. If you want to scan it to connect with me, maybe you have questions afterwards. You want to shoot me an email, or you want to check out, oh, Rafne, you said you're a therapist. I'm looking for a therapist for my kid. Scan that QR code. It will connect you with my therapy business, speaker business. You'll find my email in there, my website information. All the things you need are on that QR code link. I want to thank all of you so much for joining us, whether you joined on the stream site, whether you dropped in Zoom, whether you're watching this on the replay. Shout out to you. Remember, it is possible to bridge the communication gap with the teens in your life if you choose to listen. And if you listen and use those 6 components that I talked about tonight, your teens will feel heard, known, loved, accepted, valued. And that's what many of them are looking for, y'all. So I'm going to encourage you as you go forth and you got your letter that you're focusing on. Remember, be kind, be gentle with yourself as you practice. All right. Thank y'all so much for joining me tonight. I'll see y'all hopefully at the conference. Peace.